Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into what is honestly a massive blind spot for business leaders right now. Literally every organization out there is rushing to adopt artificial intelligence, right? But a lot of executives are treating these rollouts like just another routine software upgrade. You know the drill. You buy the tool, you deploy it, you train the staff, and boom, you're done, right? Okay, let's dive into this because that exact mindset, it's exactly why so many organizational AI initiatives are completely doomed right out of the gate. Look, AI is absolutely not just another IT deployment. It fundamentally breaks the way we traditionally manage projects, budgets, and risks. If you're a business leader or especially an IT project manager trying to navigate this new era of smart applications, sticking to the old playbook is just, well, it's a recipe for disaster. So that's why today, we're unpacking modern project management for AI-driven emerging technologies.
Right. We're looking at how artificial intelligence is basically forcing us to completely abandon those traditional, predictive project management playbooks and build totally new operating models from the ground up.
Now, I'll admit, as someone who's managed traditional IT deployments for years, I am naturally a bit skeptical. I like predictable baselines, fixed scope, clear phases. I like knowing exactly what's coming. But the framework we're debating today comes from a seriously compelling source, Dr. Alaa M. Momani.
And Dr. Momani is really the ultimate authority for today's discussion. He's a faculty member at Horizon University College in the UAE, and he brings this incredibly deep expertise, not just in software engineering, but in actual digital transformation and connecting these emerging technologies to practical, real-world organizational applications. His book is basically a massive wake-up call for project managers. It treats AI not simply as a technical tool, but as this huge disruptive force that completely reshapes managerial judgment, lifecycle control, and even organizational design.
Okay, so let's get right into the debate here. Dr. Momani points out that traditional IT uses deterministic logic and predefined workflows. If X happens, do Y. Very straightforward. AI, on the other hand, relies on probabilistic inference and data-driven learning. But from a management perspective, why can't we just use a normal work breakdown structure to manage that? At the end of the day, it's still just engineering, isn't it?
Well, not quite. See, AI introduces something fundamentally different: continuous probabilistic learning. You aren't just building static software components anymore. You're discovering, validating, and governing statistical behavior under total uncertainty. Think about it. In traditional software, progress is a function of implementation effort. You write the code, you're moving forward. But in AI, progress is all about accumulating evidence that a model actually works in the real world. And that demands a total, massive paradigm shift away from traditional predictive, phase-gated project management.
The book introduces this really fascinating concept called structural uncertainty. In conventional software, the core behavior basically stabilizes the moment it's released. AI is the exact opposite. Its performance is discovered empirically, and it remains highly sensitive to changing operational data.
Right, and Dr. Momani really emphasizes that AI is a continuous learning system. If the data in the real world changes, say consumer behavior shifts overnight, or market conditions suddenly alter, the AI's performance drifts. This completely alters how executives have to gauge ROI and scale. You literally can't just release it into the wild and move on. You have to govern its retraining and adaptation continuously.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Dr. Momani visualizes AI converging with other emerging technologies. You don't just deploy a standalone AI model anymore. That's over. It sits right at the center of cloud-native platforms, edge computing, IoT data streams, digital twins, and intelligent automation.
It's like a giant interconnected digital ecosystem. And as a project manager, this means you aren't just managing an isolated application. You are managing incredibly complex, interdependent systems. If an IoT sensor out in the field feeds bad data into the AI model, that model could trigger a flawed, automated action in the physical world. The systemic risk is just exponentially higher now.
Okay, I'll play devil's advocate for a second. If managing this convergence is so incredibly difficult, why do so many companies still try to force AI into their traditional workflows? The book lists these common failure modes. Technology-first rollouts without any workflow redesign. Treating AI as just a generic software tool, completely overlooking responsible governance, and having totally ambiguous performance requirements. Seeing this laid out, I realized traditional management workflows genuinely fail when facing AI's unique complexities.
Yes, exactly. And it's so validating to hear you say that because so many initiatives fail, not because the algorithms are bad, but because the surrounding workflows, the data pipelines, and the governance structures simply aren't ready. They try to treat a probabilistic, adaptive, living system like a static, deterministic piece of software. It just doesn't work. Dr. Momani sums it up perfectly in the book with this quote:
AI value is realized only when model outputs are integrated into decision workflows. So, a successful AI rollout isn't about just deploying a model onto a server somewhere. It is entirely about redesigning the socio-technical system around it, which means the project manager's job isn't just delivering the tech anymore, it's engineering the human change. Think about it. If an AI system generates a brilliant, highly accurate predictive forecast, but the operational team doesn't actually trust it, or they don't know how to interpret it, the project has produced absolutely zero business value.
And this brilliantly illustrates how Dr. Momani solves these failures using the AI-enabled project transformation cycle. Notice how the AI system sits right in the center, but it's entirely dependent on workflow redesign, trust and responsible use, capability development, governance alignment, and leadership sponsorship.
This is exactly how you engineer a successful transformation. It's a continuous feedback loop. You absolutely have to align the capability development with actual workflow redesign. And you must have continuous leadership sponsorship to push through the organizational resistance that just naturally occurs when people are asked to, share judgment with an algorithm. It's a big shift.
Which brings us to the harsh operational reality. Stop using conventional work breakdown structures. Dr. Momani explains that taking a standard software WBS and just carelessly inserting AI tasks into it creates massive structural distortion.
Yeah, the book points out that project managers so often collapse all the data work into a single tiny line item, which just completely ruins budgets and timelines right from the start.
Oh, 100%. Data sourcing, profiling, labeling, cleaning, and continuous drift monitoring, these are massive, highly distinct efforts. PMOs desperately need to separate empirical discovery work, which is highly uncertain, from traditional delivery work. If you don't budget for the discovery phases and the ongoing governance, your project is going to run out of funding way before it ever even reaches production.
And that leads us directly to how we define the project's boundaries. In traditional software, scope creep happens when stakeholders just keep adding features. But in AI, as the book details, scope engineering is about defining boundaries through the decision context and operational action pathways, not just abstract model metrics like, say, 95% accuracy.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I can actually see your traditional ITPM mindset shifting right now. You're realizing that AI scope creep is prevented not by locking down software features, but by engineering exactly how human workflows will react to these probabilistic AI outputs. If the model is 80% confident, what action does the human take? If it's 99% confident, does it just automate? To finding those specific pathways, that is the scope.
And because these are probabilistic systems making actual real-world business decisions, we have to talk about risk. So the crucial point here is that AI risk extends way beyond simple model accuracy. Essential business governance measures have to include model drift tracking, human-in-the-loop overrides, tiered decision control, and bias and fairness auditing. This was a really major takeaway for me. AI governance isn't just a one-time phase gate you pass at launch and forget about. It is a continuous lifecycle discipline requiring totally decentralized operational accountability. You need preventative controls during validation, detective controls like drift monitoring during deployment, and corrective controls for when the model inevitably encounters data it simply doesn't understand. Let's shift the debate to the project managers themselves for a moment. How does AI actually change their day-to-day work? Well, mapping out the AI decision support pipeline reveals how this flows from the raw project data environment, right through AI analytics, straight into the decision interface, and finally to human project judgment. Right, AI transforms PMO dashboards from static historical reporting, which basically just tells you what went wrong last week, into near real-time predictive decision support. The AI can highlight emerging patterns, estimate the likely outcomes of a schedule delay, and even recommend resource interventions. It completely changes the PM's role from a simple data gatherer to a high-level strategic decision maker. Which brings us to the absolute core thesis of Dr. Momani's book. He writes, "The future of project management will not be determined only by better tools. It will be determined by whether organizations can build adaptive operating models." It's such a powerful statement. It reinforces that scaling AI is ultimately an organizational capability challenge, not just an IT procurement exercise. Think about it. You can buy the absolute most sophisticated AI scheduling tool on the market, but if your PMO doesn't have the governance structure or the basic data literacy to use it, it's absolutely worthless. So, for all the business leaders watching us right now, what are the immediate steps to move away from these isolated, struggling AI pilots? The book outlines a super clear path to AI-native PMOs. First, redesign operating models to clarify exactly who owns algorithmic decisions. Second, build competency frameworks. PMs need data literacy and responsible AI awareness right now. Third,
engineer intelligent transformation by treating AI as a behavioral change process. And fourth, implement AI analytics progressively over time.
Exactly. It's all about building organizational maturity deliberately, step by step, rather than just blindly forcing tech onto teams that aren't ready for it.
Let's move to and see how this builds, charting the trajectory of these project environments toward the future. We start way over on the left with human-led management, where AI is completely absent. Then we move to AI-assisted decision support, getting basic recommendations and alerts. Then it gets really interesting. Policy-bounded automation, where the system actually executes low-risk actions automatically based on very strict rules. And finally, self-optimizing project environments, featuring adaptive coordination and dynamic on-the-fly adjustment. But notice the text at the bottom. As AI autonomy increases, the absolute need for governance, monitoring, and human override capability increases right alongside it.
You know, I have to concede the debate here. Reading Dr. Momani's work completely flipped my traditionalist perspective. The rise of AI autonomy doesn't eliminate project management at all. Instead, human roles will shift upward towards sense-making, complex conflict resolution, and oversight of these adaptive systems. Yes, exactly. Traditional PMs won't be replaced by AI, but PMs who don't know how to work with AI, they will absolutely be replaced by PMs who do. We must evolve our competencies to actively govern, interpret, and sometimes even challenge these intelligent tools, making sure they always align with actual business value. So we'll leave you, the business leaders and transformation executives out there, with this final provocative thought from the book. When you invest in AI, are you just building smarter systems, or are you actually building a smarter project organization? If you just focus on the software, you're going to fail. But if you redesign your workflows, embrace continuous learning, and build truly adaptive operating models, AI can unlock unprecedented value. Dr. Momani's Modern Project Management for AI-Driven Emerging Technologies is just an absolutely essential guide for navigating this huge shift. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.